What's going on there, YouTube? And welcome to Fresh Comic Stories. Guys, this is the channel that we basically sit down and cover different kinds of comic book stories. Now, guys, today we're going to jump back over to Marvel and we're going to pick up with Ultimate Marvel once again and continue our coverage over that universe. Now, today, we're going to pick up with Ultimate Human. Now, Ultimate Human was this storyline that came out in the year 2008, and it was a 4-part miniseries that basically gave us the Ultimate Iron Man versus Ultimate Hulk storyline that we always wanted, because in the main Marvel universe, that had happened a few times. And so Marvel gave us this 4-part mini-series. And so I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you do, please hit that like button down below and also subscribe for more comic book stories like this in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But let's dive into Ultimate Human. We begin the story by picking up with Tony Stark as he is getting ready for his morning meeting with someone very important. That person, of course, being the one and only Bruce Banner, where we see that Bruce Banner is here to ask Tony Stark to help him find a cure to get rid of the Hulk that's inside of him. Because Bruce believes that with Tony Stark's nanotechnology, that Tony should be able to put some in Bruce, where Tony could be able to use the nanotechnology to shut the Hulk cells down that's inside Bruce Banner. Remember, the Hulk in this universe was basically a failed experiment to recreate the super soldier serum that made Captain America. And so Bruce believes that Iron Man, being smarter than him, can help fix his mistake of trying to recreate the super soldier serum. But you have Tony agree to help Bruce out, and they need to go to his other facility, which he calls Ironworks. This is where we jump over to a random facility in southern England, where we pick up with someone telling another mysterious person that Tony and Bruce are on the move to Ironworks. This is where we get introduced to this universe version of Ultimate Leader. Well, the first version, to be honest. Now, there is a huge difference between this version of the leader than the main Marvel Universe version. This leader in this universe, real name is Peter Wisdom. But before we dive into the differences between the two universes version of the leader, we see that this version needs the blood of Tony and Bruce for some strange reason. We also see that he is wheelchair bound, and also the fact that his cranium is huge as well. Now, Peter Wisdom is a mutant in the main Marvel universe who was a spy for M6, a spy for Great Britain, but he has the powers to create flame knife constructs and able to throw them. But in the main Marvel universe, he was never the supervillain called the Leader. The villain called the Leader in the main Marvel universe is Samuel Stearns. Samuel Stern was mainly a bad guy for the Hulk, really, but Samuel Stern was hit with a high dose of gamma radiation, which in return made him turn green, made him super smart, and also the size of his cranium grew as well. But as you can see, this is a huge difference between the two universes when it comes down to it. Now, getting back into the main story, we pick up with Tony Stark and Bruce Banner arriving at the Ironworks base, where we find out that this base was made for Tony Stark trying to build high-level dangerous stuff. Now, this is where you have Tony Stark break down what is going on in the body of Bruce Banner, that the Hulk cells in his body are constantly changing his body, where it is making it easier for Bruce to turn into the Hulk. The Hulk cells, though, make it harder for the Hulk to turn back into Bruce Banner, basically stating that the Hulk cells in Bruce Banner's body will get to a point where he could permanently be the Hulk and never be Bruce Banner ever again. But this leads to us picking back up with them trying out a test where Bruce Banner must turn into the Hulk. And so they can run tests and get a better idea of how the Hulk cells work inside Bruce. And so you have Tony Stark put Bruce inside some kind of container, where inside this box they are able to emulate other planets' environment. The reason why they do this is so they are able to put Bruce's body under intense pressure so he would turn into the Hulk, because humans cannot survive on other planets. And so they turn the box on to emulate the pressure of Venus, where of course it quickly begins the process of turning Bruce into the Hulk. Now you have Tony and his team watching Bruce Banner turn into the Hulk, and while watching the process, they see that the Hulk is actually adapting to the pressure of Venus. That basically, if Hulk was on Venus, he would be able to live on that planet without any kind of issues at all. The Hulk body is growing a new form of bone structures and the other body parts needed to survive that kind of pressure, showing Tony that basically that they do not know everything about the Hulk at all. But this leads into the next big problem that Tony and his team have to deal with, which of course that the Hulk breaks out of the container. Now Tony has his guards there and their guns are loaded with tranquilizers that are full with the antidote to turn the Hulk back into Bruce Banner. The problem is that the Hulk body has adapted to that kind of antidote, which means that they are basically useless and give Hulk the chance to wreck the house now. And so you have Tony tell his team to evacuate the building because now the Hulk is on the loose. Where we see that Tony Stark is running towards his Iron Man suit because right now it is the only thing left in this facility that could possibly stop the Hulk. And so you have him running towards the suit, and you have his security team try to shoot more of the antidote, hoping that it would turn the Hulk back into Bruce Banner and stop this madness. Except this is the Hulk, and of course he is not going to be taken down that quickly. And so you have Hulk just wreak havoc throughout the facility, and that basically it comes down to Tony getting into his Iron Man suit to bring down the Hulk. This leads to Tony being able to find his Iron Man suit and go out there and try to fight the Hulk. This is something we have seen so many times in the main Marvel universe, but in this universe, this does not happen this often, mainly because we do not get a lot of stories that involve the Ultimates really, which is kind of sad. But we see Iron Man trying his best. You even have one of his assistants tell him that his suit cannot take too much damage from the Hulk. The suit he is wearing right now can literally take maybe 2 punches, possibly 3. And so you have Tony move fast and trying to get the Hulk to turn back into Bruce Banner, which he is able to do. This leads into the next day, where we see Bruce waking up after his latest Hulk episode, where he is greeted by Tony Stark. And this is where we learn that Tony was able to cure the Hulk problem. Well, not really cure the Hulk, but instead able to put a hold on the Hulk problem from popping up again. Because this is where you have Tony tell Bruce that inside his body is some of Tony's nanotech. These are the same ones Tony uses when he is trying to control his Iron Man armors. And so with these being inside Bruce now, the nanotech are now going to be able to keep the Hulk cells from going active and letting out the Hulk. And so you have Tony tell Bruce that as long he tells his bots inside the body of Bruce to keep those Hulk cells off, there will not be a Hulk never again. This is where we pick up with the leader. And remember, we got a small glimpse of this guy in the beginning of our video, that for some strange reason, Tony and Bruce have to die so he can be completed as he states. But we see him telling his assistant to tell their small army of soldiers to begin to attack the ironwork facility. That is when we see all of these missiles flying in and just blowing up different parts of the ironwork facility. And so with that happening, you then have all of these soldiers run into the building and throw in all the different kinds of gases to knock out Bruce and Tony to capture them. And so this leads to the big question, why does the leader want Bruce and Tony so bad for? Because this is a lot of work to go through to grab two people. This is where we learn the origin of Peter Wisdom, this universe version of the leader. Now, this is going to be a very compressed version explaining the origin of Peter Wisdom and the reason why he is now. Peter Wisdom used to work for M6, the super spy organization, like his main Marvel Universe counterpart did. Except the difference was that he overheard about the European Union working on a superhero team to be compared with the US Ultimates. And now this tells us this part of the story takes place right before Ultimates 2. Because in Ultimates 2, we got introduced to a bunch of different countries' versions of Captain America. Captain Britain, Captain France, and Captain Spain. The list goes on and on. Now, this is where we learn that Peter Wisdom was against having Great Britain working with the other European countries to form a united team of superheroes from all of the European countries. He wanted Great Britain to push the idea of forming their own superheroes team. He wanted Great Britain to only have the ability to create their own superheroes. Also, mainly because he did not like James Braddock Sr., who was the one pushing the European Union initiative. And so you have Peter Wisdom try to go and talk to all the higher-ups from trying to complete this initiative from happening, trying to convince to fight against working with the other countries and just basically focus on Great Britain alone. Now you have one of the higher-ups tell Peter Wisdom that if he is able to somehow convince Great Britain should not help with the European Union and just focus on their own superhero plan, then they will back out of the deal and continue with their own plan instead. This is where we see him go to this base, where they are working on a project with the combination of the Hulk cells, which were created in a failed attempt to recreate the super soldier serum. But the project also has tissue samples of Tony Stark. This is tying into the origin of Iron Man. Remember, that Iron Man's origin is very complicated, but long story short is his whole body is basically his brain, that his leg, arm, or any other part of him is basically part of his brain. But we learned that these scientists were able to combine the two different products and they injected it into Peter Wisdom, which gave us the man we are seeing now in the present day. This is where we pick up the following day after the experiment, where we pick up with him wheelchair bound and also having a halo brace to help him hold his head up straight since his cranium grew. But we learn he also gained the ability of telekinesis and became a telepath as well. We learn this when he goes back to his boss to show him the results of his project, hoping it will convince the higher-ups to not going to work with the European Union. His boss tells him how he looks like a monster and that he did not convince him that Great Britain needs to change their plans. That is when Peter Wisdom shows him the powers that he gained by stopping his assistant's heart and making it explode. Doing that though only made the higher-ups in M6 agree even more that Peter Wisdom's idea is wrong and they will not move forward with his plans. This leads to the present day, where we pick up with Peter Wisdom going inside a room, where of course we see that he has captured Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, and they are bound to the chairs. But you have Peter Wisdom tell them that he needs their blood to basically complete his goal. One is to fix himself in a way, but also being able to produce more people like him, so that Great Britain will always be protected. But that is his main goal, to protect Great Britain no matter what. This leads to the leader leaving the room to give Bruce and Tony a chance to say goodbye to one another, which honestly is not a smart move at all, because you have Tony tell Bruce he has a plan. His plan is to turn off the nanobots that are inside Bruce's body that are keeping the Hulk cells from being active, telling Bruce that the Hulk is the only way they are going to be able to get out of this. Now, this is huge, because if the nanobots get turned off, the Hulk cells will adapt to those nanobots and prevent them from turning back on. And so Bruce knows if Tony does this, that there goes this plan of keeping the Hulk from ever coming back. Because remember, the Hulk cells in the Hulk body is always adapting to whatever. And so those nanobots will become useless. But it is the only way to get out of this situation. And so you have Tony turn off the nanobots and then put Bruce under distress so he can turn into the Hulk and get to work. Now at first you have the Hulk grab Tony, because the last thing the Hulk remembers was their last battle. Also the fact that Tony headbutted Bruce to make him turn into the Hulk. And so the Hulk thinks that Tony is an enemy. But you have Tony tell him that he is on his side. The real bad guy is the man who is in a wheelchair outside going somewhere else. And so you have Hulk go outside and begin to attack against the army of Peter Wisdom, aka the leader. And so this is where we get in the point of the story where we see the Hulk just smash everything around him. It is funny to see the Hulk just rampaging through the army of Peter Wisdom, because he throws these guys around like nothing, taking their bullets head on and just beating down on everyone who tries to get in his way to Peter Wisdom. Now this is where we can say this shows how overconfident Peter Wisdom was really, because he was so sure that his plan was going to work, just waiting for Tony Stark to turn the Hulk cells off so he will be able to take their blood and use their blood to complete his goals, that he did not think about the idea of Tony just turning off the nanobots to let the Hulk back out, something he should have thought of. Now this is where we see the Hulk confront Peter Wisdom, where it does seem like that Peter Wisdom is about to get killed by the Hulk, except that is when you have Peter Wisdom use his powers on the Hulk, hoping to control the beast and make him work on his behalf. Except that is when you have the Hulk just once again adapt to the powers of Peter Wisdom, where you have Tony Stark explain that the Hulk adapts constantly to keep him from dying from different kinds of threats. After Tony explains that to Peter Wisdom, that is when you have an Iron Man suit fly down and crash right into Peter Wisdom. This leads us to the point where the story ends, and to be honest, a very weak ending, because that is when you have Peter Wisdom still alive from the Iron Man armor crashing into him. Then makes a plane that was flying over the scene of the battle crash down on top of Hulk and him. Tony was able to move fast enough and dodge the plane that was crashing down, but Peter Wisdom did this hoping that it would kill him and the Hulk. Except of course, the Hulk survives and leaves the scene of the crime. But this leaves us with the big question: will Hulk be able to turn back to normal? Because remember, it was stated that sooner or later the Hulk will not turn back into Bruce. His body is somewhat trying to give complete control over to the Hulk. But the story ends there with the Hulk leaving and us wondering, what will happen next. And this is where we are going to end today's video. So guys, please leave me a like down below and also subscribe for more comic book stories like this in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'm out of here, and I will see you on the next comic book video. Later, guys.